In recent years, there has been increasing acknowledgement of the important role mental health plays in achieving global development goals, as illustrated by the inclusion of mental health in the Sustainable Development Goals. And according to the World Health Organization, depression is one of the leading causes of disability. Suicide is the second leading cause of death among the 15 to 29-year-olds. Today we talk about mental health. We look at both success stories and support available for patients. Welcome to the show. I'm Purity Museo. In studio we have Mary Goretti Kithika, a parent who has walked the recovery journey with her son until, listen, he was able to fully recover. We also have a counseling psychologist. Her name is Grace Nyambura, and she is from the Ministry of Health. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us, and welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm glad I'm here with ladies only because you know, the issues of mental health affects our families a lot, and especially if a child is affected, then families suffer the consequences. And Mary, allow me to begin with you about your son. And you are telling me that, you know, the condition was some years back when discrimination, stigma was the order of the day. Maybe you can tell us, how did you discover that your son was having some behavior that was not okay?
Thank you, Purity, and thank you for having me on the show today. Now, my journey with my son is one that is full of stories. I discovered that my son had problems when he was around 13, 14. He was in Form 2. And some of the reasons that led me to thinking that and believing that he had a problem, even though at the time I did not know that it was a disease or it was anything related to mental illness, like most people do. He started having problems at school. He was in high school, I think Form 1, Form 2. Then he would have discipline cases, and more often than not, he would be sent home to collect his parents and go back to school for cases. He would be caught with cases like sneaking out of school, stealing stuff from his fellow students. And unfortunately, for some time, I thought it was just a pure case of indiscipline and adolescence. You know, some of these things come with certain age brackets. Until now, it developed, and he could not be sustained in the former school that he was at. Right. He was even at some point involved in planning to have a school strike. So after going to school back and forth, I decided to look for another school for him. But even then, it didn't stop. Yeah. So initially, he would hide. He would really keep it sealed that he was drunk. He would drink, but he would never let me know. But there were some certain traits that really were red flags. Because, like, for example, I would get home, and the moment I got to the house, he would walk away to his bedroom. Then I would ask him, what is the problem? And he would say, I am sick. I have a stomach problem or a toothache or something. But then, anytime I proposed, let's go, I take you to see a doctor, he would say, no, I have taken some medication. You know,
at this time he's in high school.
He was in high school, Form 2. So I could see that it was a hide and seek game.
I'll come back to you, and you'll be telling us for how long did this behavior continue. Welcome once again to the show. We are glad to have you, especially from the Ministry of Health. We are talking about this year's theme, or being on addressing stigma, if I'm not wrong. Yeah. As we speak, you know, COVID-19 has brought a lot of issues, and mental health has been one of them. Yeah. Maybe where are we as a country as far as addressing mental illness is concerned, and specifically on the theme stigma for patients?
So actually this year's World Mental Health Day's theme is mental health in an unequal world. The unequal comes in where the stigma, this discrimination on these persons with the psychosocial, intellectual, cognitive disabilities, and also persons with mental conditions, which are rather develop or are known as mental illnesses. So before it becomes a real illness, it's usually a condition. So as a country, the burden on mental health is so bad. right now, because a report by WHO states that 1 in every 4 persons is suffering from one of the illnesses, and especially depression. And you realize that as a third world country, a developing country, sorry, we are more prone. Because really we are still back there. Poverty is in the increase, so there's a lot of stigma. People are unaware on what is mental health, and those who are aware cannot reach, you know, the whole community, because the community is wide, a population of 47 million or more. You realize we are 47 million or more. So the burden is so bad right now, and also the amount of psychologists we have, the amount of psychiatrists we have, there's a big indifference between the amount of people in the country and the amount of facilities that are treating these conditions.
Right.
So you realize everyone is usually rushing to Mathare Hospital because that is the majorly known facility. And I'd love to thank the government for making Mathare a whole inclusive facility, such that you can go get a toothache treatment there, so that you realize it reduces the stigma for these persons who are having mental illness. Unlike when we were growing up and we used to know Mathare is a hospital for the mad people. You know, that is what we used to hear.
How can I tell that, you know, my state or I'm healthy mentally? Yeah. How are you able to tell that I think I'm stable and I'm okay as far as mental health is concerned?
So as far as mental health is concerned, it's only an individual who can tell where they are in their mental health condition, because most of these conditions go unspoken. We have been raised, especially the 1990s generation, they were not speaking out what is bothering them. I think there was a major disconnect when growing up, and the dysfunctional families were kind of a thing in the 1990s. I don't know. I have come to realize that recently. So you realize that the mental illness condition, a mental illness is when you're not okay. It's just like any other illness. Yeah, you can feel it within you. But for mental health, when you're feeling emotionally, how are you feeling emotionally? How are you feeling socially? How are your relationships with others? Even with your family, because you realize people who are having illnesses usually kind of withdraw. Why are they withdrawing? Because they feel this is beyond everyone that I know. And because they feel if I speak out that I have a condition, everyone will cut me off because they don't want to be associated with this condition.
Yeah, and we'll be coming back to you, be telling us some of the causes for this. Why should someone feel that way? You know, what are the triggers for that? Mary Grace, let's you know, continue from where you stopped, and you said that some of the signs that your son was, you know, experiencing, withdrawing. So for how long did this continue, and at what point as a parent did you realize that I think this is not normal and something must be wrong with my son?
I must admit that on my own, for some time, actually, let me say for the whole period of his high school, secondary school, I thought it was pure case of indiscipline, the drinking, the company that he kept, because some I would see from the neighborhood, some I would even be told by neighbors that your son is keeping some weird company, and unfortunately they would come to my house when I was not there, and you'll find that they started now, staff from the house now started disappearing. But anytime you'd ask, where is this item that I left here, nobody would own up. So one thing led to another, and when he finished now his Form 4, I took him to college. It was not until that he joined university that I was called by the dean at the time and told me, your son has a problem. Please take him for residential counseling. They were calling it residential counseling, which essentially it is. But I had no idea at the time.
And did he say what problem?
Yeah, because of course he would drink a lot in college. He would start fights with everybody, anybody. So his stay became impossible, and the same was reported now to the school, to the college authorities. Then I was called. I sat down with the authorities of the university, and they brought it to my attention that your son is unwell. Take your son for counseling. That was the time now I shared out with some few counselors. And I started looking for now a rehabilitation center to take him.
Before you take us through the rehabilitation, let me get back to you. You know, what she's talking about, like the problem did not end at high school. He continued with the same behavior until college, where they were called as a family. Maybe what are some of the causes for this? Because she's also talking about the company that the son used to keep. Maybe we can talk about, do we have causes for mental illness? Yeah.
So I will really talk about the risk factors, because you realize that there are a lot of risk factors and a lot of causes for mental illness. And one of them will be dysfunctional families. So you realize in a case where there's a single parenthood, a child may lack to form an identity that they would want, So this child tends to feel like there's something that is missing in them, and maybe they feel that they can't talk to the parent that is around. Or maybe they had an attachment with the other parent who left, and now it hurts them. And because they would want the reason, what happened, how did this happen, and how did I get here, how did we get here as a family. And because these explanations are not usually majorly given to kids, so the kids usually grow up with a lot of resentment and a lot of, the personality is usually formed by both parents. So when both parents are not there, there's a personality dysfunction, right? And then there's also another risk factor of school. You realize that sometimes there's a lot of pressure in school, pressure that kids don't tell their parents, because sometimes you get pushed to the core. Even when we were growing up, you'd be beaten because, and you see, this is where the intellectual bit of disability comes in.
The signs and symptoms, because Mary is talking about the son withdrawing and drinking for a very long time, even avoiding family gatherings and all that. I think it's important for us to, make people understand what are the early signs, what are the signals that this person might be having one of the conditions.
So one of the symptoms that we have mentioned here is withdrawal, right? And another symptom is increased appetite or decreased appetite. So you realize that your kid has suddenly started eating so much or so less. That's also another symptom. Lack of sleep, insomnia. It comes in when someone is having especially depression. And you realize that depression is not something that just happens in one day. You can only be diagnosed with the depression if it has lasted for more than 3 weeks. So you realize that this is something that has been happening for a very long time. So if you're not able to watch this, the circumstances, or if you're not able to identify the insomnia for 3 weeks, it's not really depression. It could be stress.
I'm glad that you are able to identify your son's problem through the help of the school. So at this point, did you try speaking with your family, friends, even community? And did they understand what the school was talking about, that my son is not, even for you as a parent, did you agree with the school that, okay, fine, he's behaving like this, but I don't think he's sick? Did you have an idea that it could have been a mental health issue?
Like I said earlier, I had no idea that it was a mental health issue. Indeed, just before he cleared the secondary school, I took him to outpatient counseling, I think for a few sessions. And like she's saying, it is not picked usually the very first time. Because I remember the lady counselor that I took him to listened to us, and at the end of the session, she told us there wasn't a serious issue and to just keep monitoring. Now, about my relatives, you see, when you're like I come from a large family, and there had been no other person with any issue. So to everybody else, they thought, and like she said, I'm a single parent. To a lot of people, it was like, your son is indisciplined, or you are overprotective about your son. I don't remember
you did not raise him well.
Exactly. You have spoiled your son, and I don't quite remember anybody coming to me and telling me that you need to seek professional help. At the time, we were just at the mercy of the world, I would say. Until now, after he had gone and I had been referred, I think that is the time I think people started seeing, I don't think this is normal. Violent issues now started being displayed. Because he would be violent to everybody. Even things like banging doors. One day I went home and I found the house help was not there, and I asked what is happening, and he told me I sacked her.
Oh, God. Okay.
So I was wondering, how do you sack my employee?
Yeah.
You're not the appointing authority. What happened?
So how was the recovery journey like, you know, for him?
The recovery journey was a long, tedious one, because he was in active addiction for 14 years. And we were in and out.
So that was, it was alcohol that he was consuming a lot?
Of course, at first it was alcohol.
Yeah.
But as you progress, she will tell us it's usually a progressive disease. Other things came into play, because he would now started now smoking weed, marijuana. At some point now he started chewing the cat, you know, commonly known as moguka.
What did that make you feel like a parent?
Energy draining.
Yeah.
It even shakes your faith. At one point, before now it became worse, and now it dawned on to me that this is more serious than you think.
Yeah.
He held a knife on me and demanded to be given money. I'd come from work, I went home, he wasn't there. So after a few minutes now, when the hiding now had withered out, he came home drunk and he demanded to have money. I think it was Christmas period. So when I said I didn't have money, he went quickly to the place where we kept our cutlery and he pulled the knife and asked me, "You think I am joking?" I am not joking.
And you gave out the money?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I ran out and I screamed.
Okay.
So neighbors came to our rescue.
Wow. That's such a story, and it actually explains the complications for the conditions if untreated.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give us more. What are some of the complications of and just before the complications, allow me to ask you, what are some of the disorders that are linked to mental illness? I know they say depression is the leading cause of disability. Also tell us, what does that statement mean?
Conditions such as depression can lead to physical illnesses, such as high blood pressure.
That's true.
Because you become more susceptible to even drug use, in a condition like that. We had said that, you know, the withdrawal, it leads you in a position where you're alone and you're left with your thoughts. And that thinking that you're alone is usually the worst, and that's why we're working on the stigma. Another condition is schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is a condition that is not usually majorly addressed, and I don't know why, but it is a condition that is gross in this country, because these are the people we call insane out there. When they start having, you know, it's psychotic. It's a psychotic behavior, so they kind of get violent. You see these people who are walking on the streets, they have weird behavior, but we don't look at it as a condition. As a society, we call them mad people, which is the wrong word to use. And I usually want to ask, what is insane and what is a sin, and who defines what is a sin? Because I think we have been brought up in a society where when someone is indifferent, we tend to stigmatize them. When they're not behaving as we have been taught, we tend to stigmatize them, and this only leads to, you know, escalation of a condition. So if you're not able to take care of this kid, if you're not able to help them form their personality, there really becomes a disconnect. And when the disconnect comes, the kid is not able to, you know, address some of these situations, because as she said, it is progressive. It is not something that just stops. It goes on escalating day by day. And you realize the hassles also change. So perhaps what he was going through in grade 2 is not the same thing he will be going through in grade 4, because it is now higher. So he's more prone to stress.
Okay, so I'm told time is not on our side, but we'll continue this conversation some other time. I just want to welcome both of you in a few seconds, maybe 30 seconds each. You please leave us with a few tips on now, because it's important for people to know how to prevent, you know, how to maintain mental health, how to prevent mental illness. It's very important. You can also leave us with a few, maybe to parents. It's important for them to support their children. I know you went through so much, but you were stuck with your son. Parting shot. Let me begin with you, Mary.
Thank you. Parting shot. I would encourage parents and their significant others, when you're faced with a person that is having mental illness, and especially the addictive, do not throw them away. do not curse them. Try and seek professional help. And that is how now my son, over the period of time, because I tell you he went to rehabs 8 times, I never gave up. Don't give up. You never know when the turning point is. And as we talk right now, he's running a rehabilitation center called the Cornerstone Treatment and Rehabilitation Center at Machakos.
So he fully recovered and is now helping others.
Yes, they say recovery is a lifelong thing. So they are in recovery every day. So he's now helping others through his, and he went back to school. He's now a counseling psychologist.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So he's now running his own place at Machakos, the Cornerstone Treatment and Rehabilitation Center, where he's reaching out now to people who are going through that. And my role in this is to encourage family. Do not curse your people. Do not lose hope, because hope is the last thing you want to lose. They can turn around. I am so happy with what he's doing right now. I'm so happy. Sometimes he does things to me and I don't believe it is him. Yes. Yes,
yeah, because you have both sides of him in your head.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Such a good way to end the show. You know, their success stories, it can be done. These patients can be rehabilitated. Just leave us with a few tips on how to stay mentally healthy.
I'd first like to say something.
Yeah, please do.
And just in addition to what you have said, do not curse people, because mental illness has no specific person that it can go to. It can get you anywhere, any day, and you have no calendar for that. So just take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and just don't stigmatize people. So my parting shot will be, you see, mental wellness has to do even with nutrition. Eat well, sleep well, have a journal that you can write what you're going through. You see, emotions tend to curl up when we don't air them out. So tend to write your emotions, and if you don't want to write, you can maybe get a video. There are people who are good with doing videos, and you have seen people sell their YouTube channels by sharing their stories. So you can also do what makes you happy.
Do what makes you happy.
Do what makes you happy, and don't forget to exercise.
Okay. We have to wind up, but we'll continue. You know, mental health, it's a conversation that we should keep having every single day. And I promise on this show we'll have this conversation again, but we have to wrap it up right there. Thank you so much for watching Your Health episode this Sunday evening. My name is Purity Museo. Your views are always welcome. You can always talk to us through our social media platforms at KBC Channel 1 and at Purity_Museo. The hashtag to always use is Your Health KBC. I'll see you again next week. God willing, stay safe.